Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to my virtual classroom, MKA Classroom. Now let's start today's video tutorial. We will start from here, types of banks. So, broadly speaking, banks can be classified into commercial banks and central bank. Commercial banks are those which provide banking services for profit. The central bank has the function of controlling commercial bank and various other economic activities. There are many types of commercial banks. We know that deposit banks, industrial banks, savings banks, agricultural banks, exchange banks, and miscellaneous banks. That means in miscellaneous banks there are the several types of banks. Now we will try to discuss one after another these types of banks. At first we will start deposit bank. Deposit bank. Deposit bank. Simply, the bank which collect deposit from the several classes people, they are treated as deposit bank. Obviously it is the commercial class of banks. Its main aim is to earn profit. The most important type of deposit bank is the commercial banks. They have connection with the commercial class of people. These banks accept deposits from the public and lend them to needy parties. So it collect deposit from the public and lend them. So we know that the functions of banks. Okay, please wait a little bit. Sorry. Since their deposits are for short period only, these banks extend loans only for a short period. Ordinarily, these banks lend money for a period between 3 to 6 months. They do not like to lend money for long periods or to invest their funds in any way in the long term securities. So here we will see the deposit banks is for short period of times. It do not take any investment of long period of time. On the other hand, industrial banks, it takes loans. It provides loans and takes a deposit from the industrial side, and obviously it is for the long period of time. Industries require a huge capital for a long period to buy machinery and equipment. Industrial banks help such industries. They provide long-term loans to industries. Besides, they buy shares and debentures of companies and enable them to have fixed capital. Sometimes they even underwrite the debentures and shares of big industrial concerns. So that means they act as a investment bank. Sometimes they act as an investment bank. These important functions of industries banks are as follows. They accept long-term deposit. They meet the credit requirements of industries by extending long-term deposits. These banks advise the industrial firms regarding the sale and purchase of shares and debentures. The industrial banks play a vital role in accelerating the industrial development. So these are the several companies of India's companies of financial companies as an industrial finance corporation. So in the same way in our country there are the several industrial companies which will help from our commercial sectors. After that, savings banks. These banks were especially established to encourage the thrift among the small savers, and therefore they are willing to accept a small sums as deposit. So in our country there is the microcredit institutions. They encourage savings of poor and middle class people. We have also these types of banks in our country. Then agricultural banks, that is also specialized types of banks. We know that we have several agricultural banks as like agricultural banks of Bangladesh. So agriculture has its own problems, and hence there are separate banks to finance it. These banks are originated on cooperative license lines, and therefore do not work on the principle of maximum profit for the shareholders. These banks meet the credit requirements of the farmers through term loans, that is short, medium and long term loans. There are two types of agricultural banks: agricultural cooperative banks and land mortgage banks. So cooperative banks are mainly for short period, and for long periods there are land mortgage banks. Both these type of banks are performing useful functions. Exchange banks. After that we will see exchange bank. These banks finance mostly for the foreign trade of the country. Their main function is to discount, accept, collect foreign bills of exchange. They buy and sell foreign currency and thus help businessmen in their transactions. They also carry on the ordinary banking business. So exchange bank, we have also the exchange bank, that is Exim Bank in our country, which is specially established for the foreign exchange transactions. So exchange bank is especially for the foreign exchange transactions, which help the businessmen. Then miscellaneous banks, here we will see which are not included in here, the certain kinds of banks which have arisen in due to course of special needs of the people. In England, America, there are investment banks whose object is to control the disbursement of capital into the several uses. American trade unions have got labor banks where the savings of laborers are pulled together. In London, there are the London Discount House whose business is to go about the city seeking for bills to discount. There are numerous types of banks all over the world carrying one or the other banking. This all about today. Stay home, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.